Phantom or Phantom GDL, depending on probably where you find them listed around. I've returned for their second album, Tyrants of Wrath, second full-length album. But they've been quite busy, formed in 2021, but they've kind of been quite prolific with putting out records and EPs and stuff since their conception. But yes, this is their second out on High Roller Records. And straight off the bat, Mike, I'm just going to go in and say this is old school worship, isn't it?
Do you know what? I really thought you were going to say, or you were going to tell me what GDL stands for.
Well, do you know what I actually think it might stand for? Where they're from in Mexico. I'm not going to try and pronounce it because I will absolutely butcher it. But I imagine because
Oh, yeah. Guadalajara.
there you go.
Is that
There you
it?
go.
It sounds about
I
right, doesn't
mean,
it?
sounds right. Yeah, sounds right.
No, well, I
Guadalajara.
think that's it. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think they probably just want to go with Phantom, but the GDO is just probably because there's probably a million bands called Phantom, ain't there?
Yeah. It's quite
But
cool,
yes,
actually. I quite
yeah,
like it.
man. They what I like about this band, just not actually music related, is just how like invested they are with aesthetics. They kind of go all in with their photo shoots and their artwork and their logos and
Yeah.
stuff. Um,
Yeah, yeah, man.
really enjoy that. But yeah, man, let's talk about the record, Mike. Very old school worship, isn't it? They're sort of a blackened speed thrash metal band, aren't they? Very kind of what you'd expect to hear, like very 80s sounding.
It's very sort of first wave things, isn't it? Do you know what I
It
mean?
is.
First wave
Yeah.
thrash and first wave sort of black metal. You got like an old school kind of heavy metal influence in there as well, haven't you? They're it's very much it. It's that sort of throwback vibe. Um,
Yeah, man.
do you think it sounds like an old album though, or do you think it sounds like a modern band doing that?
Oh, that's a good question. I th- I think you could be mistaken for thinking this is an old record if you heard it. I don't think it's too modern sounding with its production. It's a little bit cleaner than perhaps some 80s stuff, but I don't mind that.
It's got kind of like a youthful exuberance about it as well, hasn't it?
It
Do you know what I
does.
mean?
I put that in my notes that there's a youthful energy that stands out on the record.
Yeah.
That kind of works in its favor. Judging by their photos, they look pretty young. So I think that is it helps them in that sense.
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's let's get into it, man. What did you think of this? I got the impression you were into this album from brief bits you said to me.
I um I really enjoy this record. I think it's there's enough here. Okay, okay, I'm going to start with what I don't like first because that's not there's not a lot of that. And it's the length for me. I think
Start on
it
a negative.
start on the negative. Yeah, I think it's perhaps just a touch too long. It's basically 50 minutes. And for like when it's just like speed and thrash, I kind of just want that in shorter bursts. But that is the only real like criticism I have. Apart from that, everything else is pretty bang on, man. Like every song has it's loaded with riffs. The guitar work on display is pretty cool, man. The you've got those kind of classic heavy metal riffs intertwined with like thrashy speed metal riffs, and there's enough variation throughout the album to kind of keep you interested. Um, how did you feel about it?
I had a good time with this, man. I agree with you, like on the length. I think just for this style of music,
Yeah.
it's too long. I was thinking listening to this album, God, if I could, if I like, and it's only 11 songs, so I know the last song's 6 minutes. I'm almost surprised at how it's as long as it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. I think that's kind of taken from like more old school thrash, especially like Metallica. Like their old songs were long, man.
They were
Like
long, yeah.
I think they've kind of gone down that route a little bit, which I don't mind. It does work. Like for example, track two, "The Tower of Seth," that was giving me such early Metallica vibes, like proper Kill 'Em All era. But I think in that song it worked really well because there was enough variation within the song for it to kind of work. There were some other songs where that didn't necessarily work. I think the last track, for example, was a bit too long. You had like it started off a little bit nondescript for like the first 3 minutes, but then the last 3 minutes were really cool. So you probably could have condensed that a little bit.
Yeah, I felt like the last song, the best bit was like, the riff they used to kind of close it.
Yeah, man, I love that
That
riff.
that was cool. But I agree with you. I mean, like, yeah, you look at, I love that, mate. That Tower of Seth song you were talking about. That sort of main riff on it. That's that has got that kind of Kill 'Em All era, that sort of more traditional heavy metal, early thrash vibe. I really like that.
Yeah,
Um, and for me personally, the bits I really enjoy in this album was when they mixed in kind of some of the early black metal influence. Like when they did some bits with kind of more blast beats over the thrash
yeah,
riffs, I thought were really good, man. I really enjoyed it. Particularly track 3, Violent Invasion, which was probably my highlight. Um, really enjoyed that one. And he did on a couple of songs, but he brought in this like the occasional like deeper sort of growl
yeah,
part on it. And I thought he did
yeah.
it really well. And actually, I wonder whether it could have benefited from him doing maybe a little bit more of that on on the album overall.
That okay, two things I'll touch on. One, I think vocally throughout this album was incredible. I think that was a real standout. I think assuming it's just one guy, I don't know, but let's just assume that it is. The main harsher kind of thrashier vocal was really cool. Then he got that like kind of lower black metal thing, like almost even death metal in a way, like you were
Yeah.
saying. Then he has like this high wail, which I wanted to ask you how you felt about that kind of real 80s where there'll just be one word at the end of a sentence structure where he'd just proper heavy metal wail it. How did you feel about that? Because I can imagine that's quite divisive.
Well, it reminds me of on one of our old shows pre doing this. We covered Destruction, didn't we? And he does that
Yeah.
a lot. That's
Uh-huh.
part of his thing. Um, and I remember hating that when they did it. I think as a tribute though, I quite liked it on here. I mean, I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it, and I felt maybe it was done a bit too much for my taste.
Okay.
But I did like the inclusion of it. I think maybe for me personally, it could have been a bit more sparing than it was. There was some times when I thought he did it where I thought didn't, because it was so at points it was so frequent, wasn't it? It was nearly of every other line.
Yeah, on a couple songs it was like that. And another thing that he does was like he'd managed to fit like 50 words almost into one syllable. He'd really
Yeah,
like condense that down.
they get them in there, wouldn't
But
they?
yeah, but I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the vocals. But yeah, going back to what you were saying about Violent Invasion, that also for me was a possible standout song. I like the last half of the song. It don't like you were talking about has that blackened speed thrash element to it, and they were just on the cusp of falling out of time, weren't they? It was quite chaotic and it almost felt like it was just about to fall apart, but it kind of all just held together.
Well, they that was kind of a thing that was apparent throughout this, that there was this looseness to their playing. Um,
Yeah.
and it did have that element of it. But I have to say, there was one song, and I think it was Lost in the Sands,
Oh, yeah.
where the drum performance on it was so sloppy. And I'm just so surprised that they kept that take in. Did you notice that in that song?
A little bit. That I put that as one of my standouts. That song, I thought that song was great. I enjoyed that kind of looseness to it. You had a kind of like Slayer feel to the intro, but I really enjoyed There was almost like a Middle Eastern inspired like heavy metal riff throughout, and then with the kind of like chanting of like the lost in the sands for the
Yeah.
chorus. It was quite with that going on with the kind of Middle Eastern sound. It kind of did transport you, and there was a kind of vision going on, which was quite it was quite evocative, which was nice.
Yeah, it did. It did. The vibe of the music worked well with the kind of the lyrics and theme of the song. But I just remember thinking, I'm sure it was that one. It was either that one or Tyrants of Wrath, the one before. There was one of those two songs. I remember thinking, God, the drums are like really quite, you know,
Yeah,
almost
but
out. Yeah,
I feel like that's almost like a throwback. because he can obviously play it, and I feel like maybe that's like a throwback style. Like when you look at like old Sepultura, for example, like the drums on that were so loose and out of time and sloppy, but it's part of the charm in a way. And
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
wonder if they kind of did that on intentionally to kind of really hone in on that old school sound.
Maybe. I did think though, on other parts of the album that was done in a way that was still good. This one it was one of those 2 songs where I picked up thinking, "I think I would have made him do it again."
Really, really.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I would have it felt there was a bit where the pedals were like the pedals were wrong. Do you know what I mean?
I hear what you're saying. I personally enjoyed that take of it.
Okay.
Divisive,
It was
divisive.
a little bit
Maybe
divisive. Can we
maybe
talk
this band are
about
very divisive.
do you
Are
think
you going to say?
go
Are
on.
you going to say track 5?
I am gonna talk about track 5 because I have to say
Yeah,
vocally, I
yeah.
wasn't a fan of that song.
I loved the vocals
You
on
love the
this song.
vocals. Well,
Man, this
divisive
band are
again,
very
John.
divisive. Yeah, very divisive band. So I guess track 5, just to talk about it a little bit, was you had like a kind of almost Danzig style guitar lick to open the song.
Yeah,
It kind of did go back into a bit more like thrashy heavy metal, but there was a deeper. It was basically a sung vocal, wasn't it, throughout the whole
yeah,
song? And it was quite a lower registered sung
yeah.
vocal, almost a bit like croon. It was a bit of like a croony feel to it.
It was quite European sounding as well.
It
Like,
was.
it had had an accent.
It did, man, but I loved it because it came out of left field. I wasn't expecting it at
No, I
all.
didn't. I didn't. And
Um,
it was quite compared to the other vocals, it was quite pumped up in the mix. It was quite
yeah, it
high.
was. Yeah,
Um, and I don't know if that was a little bit of a thing for me that put me I felt it was a little bit too front and center.
I loved it. My personal take on that was I thought it was a great change. It freshened up the whole sound
Yeah.
at the right time for this record, and I thought that it was well placed and really I thought it was quite clever.
It was the only time he did it as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, you didn't hear it again. You didn't hear it
No.
again, and I like that about it.
Yeah, it wasn't quite for me. It wasn't quite for me. Track 6, so the one afterwards, I thought was brilliant. That was my other highlight song, Dance to the Spiders.
I put that was one of the lesser songs on the
Oh,
record.
fuck off. I think that was on purpose. Um,
I can't believe that we're so like on the
I
same
know.
page, but so divided on this.
I
For
really
me,
liked it, man.
yeah, go on.
Well,
For
no, I
any
just thought it
particular
was good.
reason?
I like the kind of I like the sort of they did a couple of breaks where they had like the bass on its own
Mm.
kind of lead the riff, and there was a great bit around 2 minute 40 where they broke again. And the bass it was on its own. Then when it came in, it was a really good riff.
For me, it was one of the lesser songs just because it wasn't by any means bad, but it was the most plodding in the sense that the guitar work didn't really push compared to other songs. There was only a few kind of riff ideas that repeated, and they were all quite basic. There was no. It wasn't. I sound like I'm cussing it off. It was an okay song, but I just feel like other songs were pushed a lot more than that one.
Don't know. Disagree. What was we disagreeing here? All right.
Disagree.
Well, let's get. Well,
Interesting.
okay. What about this bit? What about track 9, the sort of piano,
No,
a classical piano piece?
I loved that song. I thought it was a great little interlude that was very different. Like you don't really hear a pure piano piece like done like that in a kind of thrash metal album.
It was a bit. Did you notice as well? It felt a bit sloppily played as well, but in a.
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
think it was a bit long. Hang
yeah.
on.
It was like 3.5 minutes, wasn't it?
Oh Christ! Oh, hay
Bless you.
fever.
Yeah, it's
Um.
bad, isn't it?
Uh. Yeah, I thought I that was my only issue really with it was I felt that it maybe outstayed its welcome lengthwise. And I wondered actually because it had a couple of quite distinct sections that thing, and I wondered whether it could have been split into two piano parts and could have been
Yeah,
put on the album. I felt like there was a point in it where I was like, it's ending now. This is kind of cool, and then it went on for it was kind of almost like only halfway through and went on again, and I thought it was a bit long for me.
yeah. I get what you're saying. I hear that. Yeah, it could have even been broken up 3 times and placed throughout as like little, just tiny
That's what
interludes.
I thought maybe, and maybe it needed. I felt that it maybe needed something with it that tied it into maybe some feedback or something towards the end, or maybe one of the guitars interacting towards the end to maybe um, kind of blend it into the next song. I
blend
thought
it
you could
in.
have done
Well,
something with that, but
that's what
maybe
they.
that would have worked better with doing
Mm.
splitting it up.
Well, they did do that for the intro track, didn't they? It was
Yeah,
track one, Poltergeist. It was this really cool, like almost like vampiric synth, like dungeon synth,
yeah,
spooky,
that
icy
fantasy
intro. But
vibe, right?
yeah, but then they had the lead guitar come in and and like really set the tone of like this is going to be quite a guitar driven album.
Well, that's
Um,
kind of what I was likening it to when I was listening to it, thinking, oh, well, the intro I felt like they kind of blended that better into the things, and wondered whether it might have been more effective doing that with the piano because it did stick out and it did feel. I know you're going to disagree with me, but it almost felt a bit tacked on.
I can understand your criticism of that. I don't necessarily
Being quite
think it's
diplomatic,
tacked
aren't you,
on.
John?
I don't think it's tacked on. I just think, yeah, you are probably right in that it did outstay its welcome slightly.
Yeah,
But I
but
think I think it's had its place and it worked well.
listen. It was a good album. I actually really enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. It's one of those albums that I don't know whether I could listen to the whole thing
Mm.
voluntarily, but there's definitely a few songs on there that I really, really enjoyed. And I think I would find myself in the mood for.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely like 4 or 5 that are just like really top tier, like black and
Yeah,
thrashy, speedy metal, like greatness in here. It'll be interesting to see where they go next because I'm sure that they're not going to dwell on this, not dwell, but they're very proactive. So I imagine
yeah.
that they're probably already planning something going forward.
Do
I'm
they
very
tour,
keen to
John?
see.
Are they quite a touring band? I imagine they would
Uh,
be.
They are actually doing their first European tour, but they're not coming to the UK, annoyingly.
Yeah,
Brexit and all that, probably. Um,
absolutely. That will be the reason
so,
why we're not seeing these bands.
which is a bit annoying because I'd like to see them. But yeah, I think they're very busy in Mexico and whatnot. Um,
It's probably
but
cool.
yeah,
They're probably one of those bands that you get to see this sort of thing in a very small venue at this stage.
yeah, it does have that very like early thrash scene feel to
Yeah.
it. Quite, it's exciting. I think it's exciting is a way to put it, and I'm keen to see where they go next. I think they're definitely one to watch out for.
Well, watch this space. I mean, I reckon I wouldn't be surprised if they did another album next year. They seem to be that sort of thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. I wouldn't be surprised. And I mean, I'm all for it. So that's one to watch out for. If you like what you heard today, give us a like and a subscribe because we put out videos every Wednesday and Friday discussing kind of new metal releases that we think are kind of worthy of your time. And yeah, let us know in the comments if you did check this one out, and let us know what you think. And we'll catch you in the next one.